Hi there. Welcome to another episode of the Acts 17 Ministries podcast. I am joined today with a very dear friend of mine, trustee, the Honorable Nicole May, who is one of my serve mates. What did we call it? On the Conroe ISD school board, the seventh largest district in the state of Texas. And we are flipping tables upside down for Jesus on that school board. And I'm so honored to serve with you, my friend. Really, truly I am.
Likewise.
And I just wanted to, with Acts 17, we're here. We're turning the world upside down for Jesus. And I feel like we have been called, at least I know I have been called to turn education upside down for Jesus. And I feel like it starts with the school board. And I've heard that so much because I feel like over time, there has been a spotlight on school boards. And I was even at an event and the lieutenant governor came out and said that it was the most important race. So I really feel that there is a special place in school boards, local ISDs, to really make some permanent and positive kingdom valued change. And I feel like you're going to do it. You're going to do amazing things together as part of the team. Yes. So I really wanted to take the opportunity to get to know you. I wanted folks to get to know you, hear your story, where you're from. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from? Let's start with that.
Sure. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah.
So I am originally from Florida, the panhandle of Florida, and born and raised there. My mom was a public education teacher for 35 years, actually out on the Air Force Base where I'm from. And so I spent, my first week of summer and my last week of summer in her classroom, helping to tear it down and then put the bulletin boards back up, and watched her grade papers in the evening. And she did really cool science experiments. So I would say education was embedded into me really early on. So yes, I am from Florida, moved to Texas as soon as I can get here.
Everyone says that, right? I'm from Florida too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I went to elementary school back and forth to Ohio, and then graduated from Seminole High School in Sanford, Florida.
Which is more the southern part of
it's central.
Oh, it's central.
It's near Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are lots of different parts of Florida, like there are Texas.
Exactly. So it was embedded in you when you were a little girl. Did you dream of being in a classroom one day like your mom?
No, I really didn't. This is a little bit shocking, the turn of events that, has happened with public education in my life and the fire that is in my heart for it. No, I really did not have this plan at all. This
wasn't your lifelong dream.
This was not my lifelong dream.
Now, were you a military kid?
No, but my mom taught on the
base.
Okay. She taught on the Air Force Base. My hometown has one of the biggest Air Force bases in the country, Eglin Air Force Base.
Very nice. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your faith walk and your faith journey.
My faith walk and my faith journey. Well, I met Jesus and began following Jesus in my 20s, pretty late in my 20s, actually. So I walked with the world for a very long time early on. And when I met Jesus, I was pretty desperate for him at that point. And it's kind of a funny story. I was working out with a friend in a gym, and we were on the treadmill, and she was on fire for Jesus. Her mom was in town, and she just couldn't stop talking about him. And at first I was like, oh, okay. And something just caught. It was like it was in my heart all of a sudden. And she said this one line, and she said, "Many will be called, but few will come." And I looked at her and I said, "I want to go." And she stopped what she was doing and she looked at me and she was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Well, I want to go." And a week later, I went to Church Under the Bridge, which is a church for the homeless in Austin. And we served them and we had church with them underneath the bridge. And then I got baptized with Church Under the Bridge.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it was a pretty incredible. And so, my faith walk started really late in my knees, and I was desperate for him at that point.
Now, that's incredible. What a beautiful story. I feel like it oftentimes hits you in a dark place. And it's like a lot of people need that smack in the face.
Yeah.
And sometimes, so I presume that it wasn't something that you grew up with. Like, did you go to church when you were a kid?
Well, I did. Yeah. I went to Catholic school, actually. Yeah. But I would say that neither one of my parents had really strong faith. And so we went to church, but it wasn't this really deep thing that we talked about. And so when I walked into adulthood, I really walked in on shaky ground. And, I walked with the world. And as you know, that is a very empty place to be. Yeah. So when I met Jesus, I was fully ready for him.
On fire.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
And it's so weird to say, because knowing who you are, because I feel like I know you pretty well. It's hard to imagine you in any other place than here, because it's like a light, right? It's it's a joy in someone's eyes. You can always see it if you're walking into a place that's unfamiliar. You kind of can see it in someone's eyes and their general feel, and it's very difficult to see you in anything other than the light of Jesus. So you carry that with you.
Thank you. I can't imagine not having that foundation
Yeah.
today. It is the central part of everything that I do.
Absolutely.
And there is a hope that we have.
Yeah.
That when you don't have Jesus, you
Yeah.
just don't have that hope.
And I feel like a lot of that's missing in this generation too, because
I
it's
agree.
the moral law, right?
Mhm.
Like where do you begin with that? With our kids even knowing that foundation. So I feel like it's super important.
Agree.
Yeah. So okay, so tell me what it was. What was that snap? We've got the snap with your testimony and your walk with Jesus, but what was that connection in you that made you decide to run for this amazing job? It pays $14 million a year. It paid zero. $0.
Well,
For the school board.
that journey was a long journey to get to running to the school board. So I have two sons that are both dyslexic. And so navigating public education was very difficult early on. There was this moment with my second son where I just realized that the system was very broken for our struggling readers. And God lit a fire of advocacy in my heart. And I was really determined to help improve the system for struggling readers in Texas. Not sure how to do it. I wandered into our state rep's office and went on this crazy journey with 2 legislative sessions and helped to pass a dyslexia law that is really the most comprehensive dyslexia law in the country now. And once that was done, I looked at my husband and I was like, I think I'm going to run for the school board. And he said, well, babe, that seems like the next obvious step for you. And so, this has been a difficult journey. I think you would attest to that as well. But it is a fire in our heart to do this and to give everything we've got while we're here.
What is it that you felt public school was missing or that needed? I know that you worked really hard on the dyslexia bill, which again is the most comprehensive dyslexia bill in the country. And yes, I'm sitting next to a celebrity now.
But
I am so proud to say that and share that. I know her.
Thanks.
But so what were the gaps, or what are the gaps that are still missing that is sort of a fire for you as you serve on this board?
Well, I have 2 really overarching goals that I'd like to achieve while on the board. I mean, obviously, we have a lot of goals that we're working to achieve. Improving our literacy rates is really important to me. There is a huge percentage of our population that is in prison.
And that's not dyslexia as a whole. That's the district and the country as a whole.
Because we have a literacy crisis in our country.
Absolutely.
And so improving our literacy scores is really important. Like I said, there is a real fork in the road, and a lot of our inmates in prison are functioning illiterate. So
it's like 80% is what I.
It's a tremendously high percentage. And so I'd really like to focus on improving our literacy outcomes. I wholly believe that Bluebonnet curriculum that we passed earlier this year is going to help with that. I'm super excited about that.
And just a quick update, Bluebonnet curriculum. Let us discuss that really quick because we're addressing it here. Bluebonnet is a piece of ELAR curriculum, which is English Language Arts and Reading, that will be for K through 5. The State Board of Education and TEA deemed it high quality instruction material. Back in the last legislative session, HB 1605, there were 2 HQMI's high quality instruction materials. Bluebonnet was one of them. And we recently adopted it in our curriculum because we really feel, or at least I know I do. I feel really strongly that this is going to make a huge difference in our reading scores. And we're Conroe ISD, right? We are
very good. We're a very good district.
The top of the top. We always outscore the state averages. We want better.
Yes.
Even though we're outscoring them, we still want more for our students.
Well, we still have 40% of our student population in 3rd grade, at least, that is not reading on grade level. And it really stays around that average throughout the entire. So there's still, even though we are great, and we are, like Tiffany said, we are above state averages, and even our district, we're above that. All of our fellow
There's
districts.
always room for improvement.
There's always room for
Yes.
improvement. So
Yes.
I'm excited about Bluebonnet. It is structured literacy,
Yeah.
science of reading. It's a one-stop shop. It focuses on comprehension. I think it might be the coolest thing that we've done since
It's amazing.
It'll be a good legacy, I think.
I'm really, really excited about it.
And then the other overarching goal that I have is for special education students. So special education students are near and dear to my heart. They're truly the least of us and so important. And so I want to improve the lives of our special education students and our staff, our special education staff. So those are two fires that burn in my heart for sure.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. So let's sidetrack then into the work that you've done legislatively, because I don't know, just hear me out for all of you that think, oh, maybe I want to run for school board someday. You don't have to become a legislative advocate. That's not part of the criteria or the job description in any way, shape, or form. But this one right here just took it to the next level. And I'm talking next level. I had the pleasure of joining her in the Capitol this past legislative session. And literally, I joined you. Like, I followed you
It
around.
was awesome that day.
I held your papers.
No, you did not. You did a lot. We did a lot that day. That was a fun day.
I held your papers. It's pretty much what I did.
We had some great conversations that day in the hallway with our public chairman.
It was incredible.
The lieutenant governor that day.
Perhaps, yes. And I feel like the Capitol has become like the adult Disney World. You go there, you watch it happen, you watch it take place, you advocate and you push for change, and you meet with the movers and the shakers. And I feel like it is just so addicting. And I can't imagine being so passionate about something that you were in the 88th legislation because of what you experienced with your sons. And then when you form your fellowship, when you form your community, which you are part of the Dyslexia Coalition.
The Texas Dyslexia Coalition. So we formed so parents, basically advocates and parents throughout the entire state came together in the 87th legislature. And we realized that the problems that we were all having throughout the entire state were happening to each of us. And so it was systemic. And so we formed the Texas Dyslexia Coalition. So we are a statewide coalition now.
And force. That group is a force. And one of the amazing things about being with you and some of the members at the recent legislative session, the 89th, is people know you guys. The people in the offices, the legislators, they're like, I remember you. Well, I remember you from last year. I mean, you guys really went in there and made a difference and made a name for yourself. And they listened to you and what you had to say, and they knew you. With all the people there, they were like, I know you. I know you.
Well, sometimes we wonder if we're the nagging moms. They're like, the moms are back again.
No, because that's your child. That's your child and somebody else's child. And when something isn't right with your child, that's what moms do. Yeah. We stand up and we fight for what's right until it becomes right.
Yeah. Well, I think we realized early on that our superpower was that we were moms and we were the average citizen. Yeah. And the average citizen has a place in our legislature for sure. And so if you are unhappy with something, start advocating. Get and nothing beats ground game. That's our secret, guys, ground game. You have to be there to talk to people. And that has really been our superpower is being there. And then we work behind the scenes pretty relentlessly. There's a small group of us that is kind of the leadership in the coalition, and the amount of collaborative work that we do behind the scenes has really inspired and changed me. And so it prepared me for what we do here, and the efforts that we do on the school board as well.
I love that. So how often does the Texas Dyslexia Coalition meet? Or do they have set meetings?
So we've
because I know you're on the phone.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of that.
So we've stayed very loose on purpose. So we're not a formed nonprofit, and we did that on purpose because we wanted to be able to maneuver as quickly as possible. And sometimes when you have a board, that does make it. You have all of these different things. So we've stayed loose. So how often we get on the phone as needed, and so that during the legislative session, it's pretty tirelessly. In an implementation phase of bills, it's pretty tirelessly. So we work
as needed.
Which
is fairly often in my experience.
Every 2 years it becomes very often. Yes. Yes.
Well, I recently, as I mentioned, I visited the Capitol with Nicole, and we were there for a couple reasons. We wanted to talk about the virtual bill.
Yes.
So we had some one-pagers that was available, and then we were talking about the special ed funding. I know the 89th legislation has wrapped up, excuse me, and the numbers aren't quite what we were looking for. Can you talk a little bit more about what it was that you were looking for and why? I know we were talking about the double whammy, and can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure, sure. So for special education, so we passed a dyslexia bill last session, and we always knew when we closed that door that the next piece of the puzzle was going to be special education funding. So we pretty much have known the past 2 years we would come back for special education funding. And so that's what we did.
Real quick, can we, do you have numbers on special ed in Conroe ISD?
Yes.
In dollar amounts? I think that would be helpful.
The amount of special education students we have is topped 13,000.
Yes.
That's bigger than some districts. So it is a huge percentage of our student population. Last year we spent 55 million, but we spent 87 million.
Right.
So
you only get a certain allotment.
So we got 55 million for special education allotment, but we spent 87. So where does that extra come from? The basic allotment.
Yes.
And so the basic allotment is the initial allotment for all students, right? Every student is a gen ed student.
Exactly. And then can you talk about too, what services, what would cost that much for a special ed student?
That's a really good question. Well, the breadth of interventions for special education is vast. It's dyslexia, and our dyslexia therapists are highly qualified and highly trained, and they cost good money, right?
Yeah.
As they should.
There's an evaluation.
There's an evaluation that comes with that. Then we have our life skills classes. We have our SDC, which is our behavior classes.
Yes.
So the amount of professional
additional work than a regular gen ed kid would need.
Exactly. It's above and beyond. When you travel to the schools, right, as I do, and you go into special education classrooms, I mean, I'm amazed at what public education is charged to do for our special education students. It's like there's two separate kind of avenues, right? The gen ed student and the special education student is what they do is amazing. It is amazing, but it costs money.
Sure.
So we were back for the money, the double whammy that you talked about.
Yeah.
So early on we uncovered, so we already needed special education allotment money, right? We knew that was a need for us.
Yeah.
Commissioner Morath testified before both chambers numerous times that the gap in spending is $1.7 billion. So to make districts whole this session, they would have had to give us $1.7 billion per year for special education funding. That's a lot of money. But what we also uncovered, the Dyslexia Coalition, is that there is this old accounting practice that that takes away half of the basic allotment for each special education student that is served outside of the gen ed classroom, which is the bulk of so for instance,
basic allotment is about $6,100
$6,165 I think, plus now we got a little bit more.
And that's the amount that we get for each student that comes into the classroom,
which that covers the gen ed teacher, that covers the maintenance in the building, that covers all of the things, right? It's the initial allotment that each student is given. And I always say that every student is a gen ed student first. So special education students, that is above and beyond, right? But we're all gen ed students. All kids are gen ed students first. And so this old accounting practice removes half of the basic allotment for any special education student served outside the classroom for any amount of time. So for instance, our dyslexic students, right, they are served outside the gen ed classroom for about 30 to 45 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week, but they lose half of their basic allotment. You can see for districts how this is a double whammy for them. So we spent most of this session educating people, educating
antiquated process.
In fact, we had some really high level people that were like, this is not happening. And we're like, it is
Here's
happening.
how it's happening. Here's how you broke it down so perfectly and eloquently. They were like, yes.
Yeah.
Who is this woman?
Well, then I think we made it pretty uncomfortable because to fix that was very expensive. It was over $1 billion a year just to fix that. We spent most of this session just really educating people on that. We'll be back next session. We didn't quite get what we were looking for,
but we made there were some strides. So we have to show a little bit of
100% agree.
Know that it's a working process.
Yes.
And as you know, the first time you were in the legislative session, it didn't go the way we wanted. So you just have to keep fighting.
100% agree with you.
It seems like that's a trait in you.
Well, and I am grateful for what we've done. We
Yeah.
updated the special education funding
Mhm,
formula, which is
mhm,
huge. That's
mhm.
been an old, antiquated formula.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. We got evaluation
Yes.
allotment. I don't know if you
Yes.
know that one or not, but we
Yes,
got an
I did.
evaluation
I
allotment
did.
now. And they increased the special education
Mhm,
funding, I think
mhm.
850 million in the biennium. So it's not quite where, well, it's definitely not where we need to be. But you know
Yeah.
what? I am grateful for progress.
Yes.
100% agree with
Progress
you.
is always good. Yeah.
Definitely.
But somewhere to shoot next year as
And the
well.
needs are high in our
I'll hold your
state.
papers next year.
You know,
I have no worry, no
you did
problem
not hold my
holding
papers.
your papers next
We had
year.
a lot of fun. That was a really special day. I have to
It really
say,
was.
like the amount of doors that we got to go into were
Or people passing in the hall. Wait, what?
yes.
And then yes,
And
for
well,
sure.
and then we were there for our the virtual bill, and we had a couple of our virtual students from Conroe ISD that were there, and they
Yes,
testified
right.
powerful.
To
There is
hear the actual stories
yeah,
of how it has helped them, and then the
yes,
virtual bill passed,
yes.
and it's because of us and our family work. No, just kidding. But
Well, and when the kids testify,
very,
those are
very
the big guns.
strong.
Okay,
Yeah, very, very strong.
it's really hard to deny the
Yeah.
kids what they are requesting or asking for.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you feel, I know that there's a lot of kids, particularly, and I only can speak for Conroe ISD. I know there's a lot of kids that, well, I hear from a lot of parents that feel as if their child is not properly being taken care of in the district. Do you feel like this legislation will help that? Or that particularly, I know that we're getting funding, we're not getting enough funding, and we
Yeah.
still have the double whammy. But do you think that progress is progress, that it's going to help the parents and the kids? That from what I know about special needs is early intervention is best. So the
Mhm.
sooner you can get a child in to get help is what's best for them and
Mhm.
set them up for their future and their successes in the future. Do you think that this will help this situation? I know that money obviously will help, but do you think that we're still going to
Yes.
have parents that are very upset that their child wasn't diagnosed properly? Or I know that it's such a difficult process too, because
is.
sometimes things are misdiagnosed. There's dyslexia and there's ADD, ADHD, and there's so many different aspects of these and all of that. So
Well, and I will say, as a special education parent, because remember, first and foremost, I started my journey as a special education parent. What I can testify to you is that it is scary.
yeah,
And we don't know what we
just
don't
want to help
know.
your child.
I believe that God woke me up every day at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was thinking about my sons and not sure how to fix it, but knowing something was wrong. So you have to understand that parents are afraid. It is a scary process. Once parents start getting information, then they become more equipped. So
Oh,
I think
yeah.
the more we can equip parents with information and knowledge. So I would like to see that. So there's a few things that I think will help our situation specifically. Yes, the money is going to be helpful in allocations, but there is another problem that we haven't talked about, and that is the special education pipeline. So there are not enough special education professionals coming out of our colleges. I don't know how to fix the pipeline.
Okay.
That's a whole nother issue. I know that our special education director is out at the local colleges really trying to recruit for Conroe, but there's not enough. So there's a pipeline issue. So even with all the money in the world,
there's a pipeline issue in education as a whole.
I agree.
But I can only imagine. Yes.
So that is an issue. Some of the things that we can do, though, that I think that don't cost money would be, we're working on putting a special education parent committee together, kind of like SHAC, but for
Student
special
health and
education.
advisory, not committee, council.
Yes.
Yes.
So that would be, so the parents have a really
Good,
strong
good.
voice at the table,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Helping to guide and collaborate and work together. So we're working on that. So
Good.
I'm hopeful by the time I leave the board, there will be something with roots in
Yes.
place for that. But I feel like the more parents know and the more that we
Absolutely.
collaborate with parents. So I would like us to see a much stronger collaboration between our special education team and our parents in our district.
I love that. And I can tell you that I've seen this woman work. I've seen her toe to toe with the lieutenant governor. I've seen her with the chair of the pub ed committee. I've seen her work, and I'm confident that you will make great strides on this board and in the state of Texas, quite honestly. And who knows after that. And I'm really, really proud to know you and watch you work, because it's incredible. I've served now on our board for a little more than 2 years. And I've never seen a trustee and go in to different departments and meet with teachers and work on the things that they need and truly are genuinely concerned and caring about what the district and what the students and what the community needs as much as you. I've watched you work and I'm truly amazed by it. And I believe you that you want to leave a legacy and you want to help these kids and you want to help this community, because I know your heart, and I think it's pretty amazing.
Likewise, friend.
Oh,
Likewise. I mean, look, the 7 of us on the board all bring so many unique talents and drives, and I think it's all 7 of us have that fire in our heart to improve the system and to ensure that students have the best learning outcomes and are, the best student that they can be.
I mean, if you're serving on this board and you want something else other than improving learning outcomes, then you might be serving on the wrong board. And that starts with reading. How in the world can we send out functioning members of society if they're not reading? I mean, that has got to be one of
that is the base level of everything. Well, my mom said
to me, there's air, there's water, and maybe reading.
When my oldest son was really struggling with dyslexia, before we had put any interventions into place, he had a lot of behavior issues, right? Mm-hmm. And my mom, who again is a retired, pub ed teacher, she said, well, but can you imagine being at work? Because our students, when they go to school, they're going to work, at work all day, and the basic building block of what you do is really hard, and you can't explain how hard it is, and you can't do it well. I mean, behavior is going to be an issue. So it is the baseline.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Act 17's podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. Two friends talking.
Been fun. I know. And I'm so thankful for you.
Likewise.
Turning education upside down for Jesus. And I really feel like you embody that in everything that you do. So I'm so thankful for you. Love you. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.